there, I'm Andrea from Santa Fe Painting Workshops, and today I want to talk about how to start an abstract painting. And I want to go a little deeper than just how to start, because a lot of times people think that the big issue is, well, how do I start? Like, once you figure that out, like, that's all you need to know. There's actually more beyond that. And so I want to talk about how to start an abstract painting. We're going to look at paintings and the different sort of categories they're in, because that helps you understand how to start. And then I'm happy to answer any questions. So first of all, I'm in my studio here in Santa Fe. I teach in-person classes and retreats. And I also have an online abstract painting course called Abstraction Beyond Boundaries. And then I also have this YouTube channel. So I love to teach people abstract painting. I've been painting for 30 years now, so I've been doing it quite a long time, and I've been selling my work for about 18 years. Okay, so let's just jump in. How do you start an abstract painting? I'm going to go ahead and take a seat here. Okay, so how do you start? Well, there's basically, we think about abstract painting into two different categories. We have abstracting something. So abstracting a person or an animal or a place or an object. So think about Picasso, abstracted people. He abstracted still lives, right? We have, abstract landscapes, right? So think about various artists who abstracted the landscape, like Richard Diebenkorn. He also abstracted cityscapes. And then we have, so there's that category where we're abstracting something from reality. And then there's the category of, basically, it's called non-representational, okay? So we're not representing anything in reality. So we have abstraction in two categories. We're representing something abstractly that exists in real life, or lines and shapes, otherwise known as non-representational. That's the first thing to understand when you're going to start an abstract is, do I want to abstract something, or do I want to just do lines and shapes? And I think that's your first decision, okay? What I naturally progress towards in my own art is abstract landscapes, abstract florals, and non-representational, okay? So that would be, this is not finished, but something like this, okay? Lines and shapes. Those are the three categories, but I mostly gravitate towards abstract landscapes. So actually something like this one, okay? And it's just me and what I gravitate towards. Everyone's going to have their own sort of things. Some people prefer to abstract people. So that's kind of what I naturally do. But if you can first figure out, are you interested in taking a flower and abstracting it? Or, I'm not sure if this fits in the whole screen here, like here I've abstracted an aspen and a flower. But it all came out like I didn't plan this. It just sort of happened, okay? And that's one thing to know too, is like some abstract painters plan what they're doing and they know where they're going, and others just flow and they see what emerges. And that's what I like to do. I find that more fun, more exciting. And the only time when I have maybe more consciousness, like a little bit more, conscious decision about what I'm going to do, is when I'm getting ready for a show. And let's say like I just did a show with all my natural pigment paintings. So I wasn't going to get my acrylics out. I was using all my natural pigments for that. So there are times when you might not want to just flow and see what emerges. But I think flowing and seeing what emerges is really fun. For me, that's very easy. If you're coming from the representational world, you might have a hard time with just flowing because you're used to looking at an image and painting it. So for someone like that, if you're in the representational world, I would say I would start with abstracting things, okay? Abstract, let's say you paint flowers, let's start with that. Or you paint realistic people, let's start with that, right? So that's your first decision here, is what I'm going to do, okay? Not representational, or am I going to represent something? Now, when it comes to non-representational, what's really important, and I'll show you a few examples, is your composition, okay? So this piece is really just shapes. Right? So in a not representational painting, you can actually just paint shapes, lines, squares, circles. Geometric abstraction would be a good one to look at, a good art movement to look at examples. But we're not supposed to see anything. And I call this ephemeral seed, or it reminds me of a seed, but ultimately this is a non-representational piece. give you another example. So this one, these are both natural pigment paintings, by the way, and this one is just lines and shapes, right? And composition is important because where I'm putting this black line is, this is the focal point, right? Your eye probably goes here first because it's the biggest, the darkest thing, right? And it's contrasted next to a very light area. So when you're doing a non-representational painting, you have to really think about composition and make sure that you understand it, okay? And generally speaking, we have putting things in the dead center, we have putting things off center, right? I like asymmetrical balance. This is asymmetrical balance, right? If we draw a line in the middle, it's not the same on each side. But you could also do things symmetrically, like butterfly wings, for example. So that's also non-representational. A lot of these, so those two are finished pieces, but like this is not even, this was actually a demonstration I did on YouTube, and you can find the lesson. This is a lesson, it's called, I believe it's how to use 2 colors or 3 colors, just limit your palette to 2 colors in an abstract painting. And in another video on YouTube, I showed you how to mix your own yellow iron oxide. It's a golden color. In fact, here, oh, that's raw sienna. Yeah, transparent yellow oxide. So I showed you how to mix that. And then I also had another video on how to mix sage green, and then I did a painting. So anyway, this one was a demonstration, but this is also non-representational. I'm not abstracting. There's no flower or cityscape or person that you can make out. Some people like to be like, oh, I see a puppy there, or I see, you know, a marshmallow. And I'm not a big fan of that. It's not really about that. You know, for me, my work is not about that. It's not about finding these hidden little things. It's about enjoying the colors and the forms and the beauty of it. So, non-representational, again. And let's see if I have any other examples. One more here. So, if you want to start an abstract painting in a really easy way, you can just start with shapes, okay? This is another example, but it's a bit more complicated because this one has shapes that are layered over each other. But if we really break this down, we've got this gold shape, we've got this gold shape, this gold shape. There's big shapes, there's small shapes, there's long shapes, there's fat shapes, there's skinny shapes, right? So, but it's shapes, that's what it is. Not really lines, a few lines here. But we have these different techniques. We have glazing, we have translucency, we have texture, right? There's a lot more. That's why I say it's a lot more than just how do we start. It's like, how do we make it interesting? How do we make it dynamic and beautiful and layered and have emotion and feeling? I like to have feeling with my paintings. Okay, so that's our first, is start your painting with shapes or lines or squares, okay? And I have a few YouTube's tutorials if you want to check that out. One's called How to Start with Shapes, How to Start an Abstract with Shapes. So you can check that out and see. But this is a really easy way to get started in abstract painting, especially if you find it easy to just play and have fun and get loose. But if you're from the representational world, once again, you've been painting representationally realistic things, then you might want to do like abstract landscapes or abstract florals or portraits, things like that. So I'm going to show you now some abstract landscapes. And this is, you know, this is sort of on the edge for me. It reminds me of a mountain, you know, a cliff, and there's elements that feel like nature, but it's not really. So this is pretty abstracted, okay? But we do have a bit of a horizon line. And so when we have a horizon line, you could, yeah, up here, let's say, right? Then it's a landscape because we humans are pulled down by gravity to the earth, and we usually can see where the bottom is, right? We can always see where our feet are when they're on the earth, unless you're, you know, flying in the air, but even then your feet are on the plain floor, right? So when we see a horizon line, the horizontal line, then we think sky and land, and it's abstract landscape. So that, to me, also makes us an abstract landscape, right? Makes this one an abstract landscape. We have, you know, references of, you know, bushes and trees and flowers, clouds, sky, but it's not really that. It's not super realistic, right? And also on this note, I want to say something. So somebody might say, with this painting, well, that's not really abstract. That's an aspen tree and that's a flower. And so this is not an abstract painting because it's actually a, you know, a natural, it's actually a landscape, let's say. And I disagree. Some people think that an abstract is only lines and shapes and circles, and it can't look like anything in real life. That's not true. So, we wouldn't call Picasso a realistic painter. He abstracted things, he changed things, he removed details, he exaggerated details, he changed colors. That's what abstracting is. It's making reality in one way, right, look really different and have less details or be exaggerated. Or it's lines and shapes that sometimes will remind us of things in real life. So if you are painting a person and it's not meant to look just like a person, you're not trying to get the skin tones, the exact right color in the hair. If you purposely change those things, you are abstracting, okay? Another abstract landscape, we have the horizon, we have the sky, we have the ground, okay? So I find abstract landscapes to be really fun and really approachable and easy to do. So another abstract landscape, we've got the horizon line, this is a high horizon line, tons of texture in this piece. This one has been painted over and over and over again. I did this one in one of my classes. I have all this 16 by 20 size because that's what I teach in my classes. That's what the students get. So anyway, lots of texture here, right? And it's fun to play with abstract landscapes because there's so much you can do. I mean, there's so much you can do with anything, but I just love nature. I live in a place where I'm looking at the mountains outside my window all day. We have a lot of gardens, and so I think a lot of us can relate to, like, you look outside, unless you're living in a big city, you see nature, and I like to bring those memories of nature into my paintings. So, so that's about it for abstract landscapes. And then the last one is abstract florals. So I do a lot of abstracting florals. So you can see with this one, we have this sort of essence of a flower there, but it's not exactly a flower. And I have a lot of other paintings too, but I haven't been doing those as much lately. I've been much more into the abstract landscapes and my natural pigment paintings, which are non-representational. So here's the deal. Once you sort of figure out, again, okay, I'm going to abstract, and you can take a reference image. You can take a reference image from a hike that you just did recently, right? And use that as a reference image. But then maybe you're going to remove some details, because a lot of these images will have a lot of details. Okay, we're going to block out areas of color. We're going to change some colors. We're going to brighten things, just like you would do in Photoshop or in Canva or on your phone. You kind of edit colors to make them pop more or make them more interesting. You do the same thing when you're painting, when you're abstracting something. You're changing it. Maybe there's a feeling about the place that you just hiked, that you just love it so much, and the image is cool colors. Maybe you want to make it warmer, right? We give those yellows and those oranges. It feels like dreamy and it feels emotional and warm. So that's the first decision here, is we can actually use a reference image, or you can just use your brain and just paint. Just think about the place, right? Just think about how you feel in that place, or just paint and let yourself make these forms, and knowing that subconsciously you are painting this place, but you don't have to make it look exactly like that. Okay, so once we've figured out how we're going to start, okay, we're going to start by doing a bunch of lines and shapes, or we're going to start by abstracting something. Then we have a lot more decisions that we have to think about. And I want to talk about this. This is kind of our deep dive right now, is because I think people think the biggest thing is, okay, well, how do I start? Once I start, I'm good. Great, I started. But no, really, it's how do I finish? How do I know when it's done? How do I know when this was finished, right? How do I know when this one was finished? Why do I know this is not finished? Why do I know this is not finished, okay? These are the decisions. These are things we have to learn a little bit more. And the way we learn these is by looking at a lot of art, right? Like, look at abstract art and see what you're drawn to. What are the paintings that are hanging up in museums and galleries? Not all galleries are great. Sometimes the work is not that awesome. So pick your galleries, wisely. But you can go online and search, whatever it is that you like, whatever genre you like, and look at the paintings that are out there. And ask yourself, why does this artist consider this thing finished? So, and I'll just say, what I think you have to know is let's just grab this one. We have to know that there is a contrast area, there's a focal point. I like to have feeling, there's balance, there's interest. There's things in the painting that draw you in and want to make you look at it more. So this one I enjoy looking at. I really enjoy looking at this, as opposed to this one, which is clearly not finished. I don't even know which way it goes. It's just not finished. you know, you go there, you move around, and for me, it's kind of boring in comparison. So, what is it about this that is different than that? Well, it has a lot of texture, it has more layers, it has mysterious things that I don't really know what they are, but I'm interested to go deeper in them. And it has a lot of contrast, okay? So, those are the big things I think you really have to understand. So, you have to understand composition, okay? So, you have to understand color. What colors go well together? Okay, these colors look really nice together because they are called analogous colors for the most part. So these are all near each other on the color wheel. Okay, I don't have orange or red or yellow, a little bit of yellow actually. Okay, but notice how this yellow stands out a bit more. So the color scheme is really nice and pleasing, and we have lights and we have darks. We want to have lights, lights, and darks, darks. Now, do you always need to have that? No. For example, like this painting, it has a medium light tone and then this really, really dark. We don't have a whole lot of value range, but it still feels finished because of that bold contrast. But there's also a lot of details. There's mica down here. There's some layering that's happening. It's thicker here. It's more saturated. The yellow's more intense. So this one is finished, even though we don't have that value range. So really, once we make that decision about what we're going to do, then it's like, well, how do I balance this thing? How do I have enough darks and lights? How do I know how to have a focal point? How do I know what colors to use? And what are some cool techniques that I can use to make it look really interesting? Because one of the things about abstract painting is that I think you have to go beyond the brush. All of these paintings, there's not even a brush in this. This is poured and scraped. Okay, this one has brushes, but there's also stencils and there's also a lot of scumbling with a palette knife where you get paint and you scrape it across. I do some brush, but I do a whole lot of using palette knives, using scrapers, using stencils, using my fingers, toothbrushes, rags, all kinds of things, okay? So yeah, so to go back a little bit here about what we want to think about. So what I'm trying to say here is that we want to think more than just how to start. We want to understand how to finish. And I actually have a challenge that's starting next Monday, August 18th, 2025. And if you're watching this video after that point, because it'll be on my channel, this will be recorded, I have something else for you in the description box, so check there. But in this challenge, I take you through how to paint an abstract landscape. Actually, let me grab it real quick. I didn't think about that, but let me do it. Okay, so we're going to paint this landscape, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's put it here. And I'm not a big fan of like paint and sip type things, okay? So I don't always love that because I feel like we're all just copying what the teacher did, but I do lead you through how to paint this painting, and I've done this challenge before. What I like about it is people come out with really different results. The colors are similar because I have a color list and things like that, but people interpret it in different ways based on where they live. So like I live in a place where actually we don't have a whole lot of water, to be honest, but I grew up back east where there was a lot of water, so like the ocean, I was there every year, so that's important to me. But our sunsets can look like this, so it's influenced by where I live. And so in the challenge, I take you through step by step how to paint this painting, and so I show you how to start, okay? We talk about composition and where to put your horizon line and why, and then I take you through how to paint the sky, how to paint the ground, our base layers, how to layer on top of that, and then we're choosing really specific colors and techniques. I love this dripping technique. It's one of my favorites to create some beautiful layers. And so each day you get a lesson sent to you. They're pre-recorded. And so there's 4 lessons. I send you one this Monday. I'll send you the second one on Tuesday. And then I send you 2 on the last day because they're shorter lessons. And then next Thursday and Friday, I have a live final class. Now, in the lessons, I'm really taking you through how to do stuff, but I'm not talking about the theory. I'm not talking about why I put the horizon line where I did. I don't talk about why these colors work so well. I don't discuss, some of these sort of tricks with abstract painting, this sort of mindset, because it gets to be too much. I want you to just paint, right? So Thursday and Friday, you have 2 choices for that live final class. I will take you through each thing we did and say, here's why we did this, here's why we did that. And just as a note on the side, I've actually got a master's in art education, and I taught middle and high school English and art for 18 years. So I'm a teacher, I'm a trained teacher. So this is what I do. So I like this way of doing it because it's kind of like when I taught Shakespeare. We would read an act, and then we would watch Hamlet. And so they could like have a person, you know, that it looked like and understand it better. Then we'd read the second act, and then we would watch it. So it's almost like, you know, I guess the opposite in a sense, but I think when we, you know, break up the different parts of our brain, because when we're painting, it's more right brain, okay? Even though you're following what I'm doing, there's still very right brain, loosey-goosey things, you're in your intuition. But what I'm teaching you, lecturing and giving you like information and vocabulary and theory, that's more left brain. And I want you to be in a different mind state. That's why I break up the challenge like this. Now, the other things about the challenge is that I have a Facebook group that's only for challenge members, and I do charge $10 for this challenge. And the reason why is because I give you you get a ton of stuff in this challenge. First of all, the lessons alone I charge $49 for. So that's $49 usually. People, you know, buy that separately and they do the lesson on their own, which is great. But here's what you get instead. Every day, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I'll do a live Q&A in my Facebook group. And you get three creative meditations. On Sunday, which is the welcome party, I'll do our first creative meditation. And I do these creative meditations because so many people have these beliefs about themselves and about art that are like really defeating. Like, I'm not an artist, who am I to paint? You know, that kind of thing. So these meditations are about like embracing that creative part of yourself. So the first one is Sunday and it's live. But then I send you two more that are pre-recorded with some video. There's some beautiful images. And, you know, I call it meditation, but really it's like, it's a time for you to relax and kind of touch and get in touch with yourself and just hear someone helping guide you to like what you want in your creative life. Okay, so you get those as well. And then you also get the Facebook group, which is only to challenge members. And in the Facebook group, people post their paintings, they ask questions, they get feedback. And so that's the key. A lot of these other challenges that are free, you don't get the teacher like saying, hey, this is what I think about your piece. Every single person gets feedback. So that's what we're doing next week. We start Sunday officially with our welcome party, and then Monday's when the first lesson comes out. So if you want to sign up for that and go a little deeper on not just how to start an abstract, but how to make one look really cool and how to do some of these techniques I have here, and have access to me to ask any questions, then please sign up. The link's in the description box below. And you can also go to my website. Actually, it's not on my website. So yeah, go to the description box below. That's how you'll get it. But if you can't find it for some reason, you could go to my website, santafepaintingworkshops.com, and contact me and reach out and say, hey, I can't find that link, and I'll get it to you. But I hope that you will join me, and like right now we've got about 500 other people signed up for the challenge. I like the group to be small. I'm not trying to get every single person in the world to sign up. I want people who are serious about abstract painting and who are focused. And so I'd love for you to join if that's where you're at, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Now the only thing is I have my camera facing this way, but for me to see my screen, I've got to go over there. So you're going to have an image of my painting, and I'm just going to pop around here to my phone and see if you guys have any questions. So 1 second, please. Do you name each piece of art? If so, how do you come up with the title? Great question, Durette. And let me come back over. So I know it's kind of funny that I have to walk away to see the question, but this lens is a lot better than the other lens, and so anyway, bear with me. I do name each piece and I name it afterwards, because like I talked about, the way that I paint, the way that works for me is I just begin. I just intuitively pick a color, I put it down. I intuitively put forms down. So it all happens intuitively. But then as I start to see like a certain composition emerging or an idea, then I go with that, right? And then in the end, like I'm always surprised. I was surprised about this piece, okay? This piece, I didn't know I was gonna do that. Now, I'm not surprised about the landscape thing because that's what I do a lot, but this whole situation is, I just have never done that exact thing before. I mean, every time it's new. So what I do is I look at the piece and what does it remind me of? Or how does it make me feel? So this to me feels very moody, dramatic, a little dark, but also lively at the same time, right? If it reminded me of a certain place, I might pull out a title from that. But just to give you some names, this painting, oh, I have 2 Aspen paintings I did recently. I think this one is Warm Aspen or something like that. Something about being warm in Aspen. That's not the exact title. I don't have the titles written on the back yet. So I believe this one is like Summer Eve. This one's Summer Eve because it feels like a summer evening. This one is, what did I call this one? Again, not titled. Oh, I forget. Oh, Desert Rose. That one's Desert Rose because it looks like a desert rose. This one is Advent of Spring because it reminds me of when spring starts and we have all that beautiful green and like just coming out of winter, everything's gray and then all of a sudden it's like green. So the beginning, Advent of Spring. So usually it will remind me of a place, but other titles, let me get this natural pigment painting. This one I call Petrified Wood because it reminds me of petrified wood. So usually, I mean, all these examples here are really about, it reminds me of a certain thing. But sometimes I have painting titles like Transformation. There's one called Meditation. What else? Waterfall. Or sometimes I like to use words that have some feeling. Like, so Transformation is one. Let's just talk Transformation. The painting, something about it for me just felt like a moment when you just transform something big and how that would feel. That's what it reminded me of. If you want to see this painting, you can go to my website, andreasermansky.com, so you can see my last name on here. And like go to my, that's Abstract Landscapes, and you can see some of my titles and the images. So in that painting Transformation, to me, it felt like that, what it feels to transform, you know? So those are different ways that I title my paintings. Maybe what I'll do here is I'll just sit here and turn the camera. So sorry, it's going to be a little shaky for a second. And all I see is Dorette's comment here. So, oh no, there's others. Hi. Okay. All right. I've signed up for the class. Do I have to use a square canvas? No, you don't. Let me talk about that a little bit more. Okay. Thanks. Maybe I'll just go ahead next time and use the other lens. Okay, for the challenge, you don't have to use square, but this would also work landscape, right? So you know, like horizontal would work really well like that. It also works like this. Like I like to do a lot of landscapes vertically. So it's up to you. If you're the kind of person where you're gonna have a hard time like adapting, you know, like, oh, I have a hard time sort of adapting to a different format, then you might just do square, okay? So I didn't see many other questions on there, but yeah, I mean, if you have any questions about abstract painting or how to start, or like, where do you get stuck? Like, ask me right now. Like, is there something I can help you with before we sign off here? So anything else about abstract painting where you get stuck, you need help with, you don't understand, happy to answer that. And let me turn my camera around. I like to paint on acrylic paper. It doesn't take up as much room as the big canvas. How do I attach it to a piece of wood? That's a great question. I don't do a whole lot of that, but I've got a lot of friends who paint on paper. And honestly, I feel like I should because it takes a lot of room. I'm almost at the point of needing a storage space because I feel like my studio, you guys just saw, you know, there's paintings all over the place and boxes and things. So paper's a really good idea because, yeah, you can stack it up. And so what you can do is get a wood panel, and there's various glues you can use. It's not something I've done a whole lot of, so I can't sit here and speak from experience. But there are definitely glues out there, and I might just Google that. I'm sorry I don't have an answer for you about which glue, but I have used, I guess the biggest thing here is use an acid-free glue. So what I mean by that, the acid-free is we don't, just like paper, we don't want acid to leach out because that will get into the paper and it'll yellow. So make sure you're using an artist, you know, professional quality type of glue, okay? And I would just Google that, but what I would do is make sure you're using paper that's standard sizes because panels, this is a wood panel, as you can see, This is 12 by 12, right? So you want to use those standard size papers that correspond to the panels, okay? And then you would just get your glue, put it on the back of the paper, and you would stick it on. And what I would do is I would put wax paper on the whole thing and then heavy books, right? So it really sticks on there, okay? And that should work just fine, you know. And you know, would want to finish your edges of your panel first. So I would, you know, you could keep it wood, but I would probably put a sealer on it if there's not a sealer, or you might paint it black. I did a framer. I used to use a framer, you know, professional custom framer. I don't do that anymore, but she would always say paint your sides black because you won't get, when it's in the frame, the light of the side of the painting won't reflect on the, you know, the frame. So yeah, that's what I would say. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions here about abstract painting. And should we paint the canvas with gesso first to be ready? Yes, absolutely. I'm just looking to see if there's other. Yeah, definitely use gesso. And even if you're using watercolor paper, use gesso first. A lot of people like to use 2 coats. Now, if you're using a pre-gessoed canvas, you don't actually have to add more gesso to it. That's good enough. Because we're gonna build layers in the challenge. Like and I always build a ton of layers in my paintings. Like this painting, because I just paint over the same piece over and over again when I'm doing these classes. Well, actually, no, I mean, I paint over it to a certain point, and then when it's done, I call it done. This piece is done, I'm not gonna paint over this anymore. I really like this painting, actually. So, but this doesn't have much gesso on it, but I'll tell you what, it has about 20 layers of paint on it. So if you're that kind of person that you do a lot of layers, you can just use the factory gesso that's on the canvas. If you resolve things quickly and you like more thin applications, of paint, you might put a few layers of gesso just to get rid of that factory grid that's on there, but some people kind of like that, so it's up to you. But I would definitely gesso your paper if you're using paper, or if you're using ungessoed canvas, a few layers of gesso would be good. So, what other questions about abstract painting can I answer? Looks like you use 1/2-inch canvases. No, you know what? Not usually. For my demonstrations, when I use 1/2-inch canvases when I'm teaching people how to paint my studio, because these are the cheapo 5-packs from Michael's for $19.99. They're great. You can't get a better deal than that. And even paper, if you get good quality paper, that's more expensive than these canvases. So I usually use these guys, okay? This is what I like. I mean, you don't have to frame it. It's beautiful, big and chunky, 1.5-inch, you know, canvases like this one as well. So because you don't have to frame it, this one I definitely have to frame, because to me it looks cheap when it's in this canvas, right? And, you know, I could re-stretch it to thicker stretcher bars, but that's a lot of work and you can't really always get it that perfect. So I'll just put a nice frame on this. And you can still put a big chunky frame on it and it'll be kind of inset. And that really looks great, actually. So that's what I'll do, is I'll frame this piece. Okay, what other questions about materials, about anything at all, techniques, about the challenge, okay? And if you're just popping in now, this video will be on my channel afterwards. It's recorded, and I spoke a lot about how to start an abstract and the things you have to consider in the different categories. And now I was just talking about my challenge that starts on Monday. We're going to teach you how to paint this abstract landscape. So, and you can get information about that in the description box below. Let me go ahead and check the phone one more time. So prepare for a little turn here. What is the best acrylic paper to paint on? And, oh, here's another question. What do you use, if anything, to do a sketch before starting abstract painting? I've used charcoal and it makes the colors change. Yes, I don't like using charcoal. And what is the best acrylic paper to paint in? Okay. First, what acrylic paper to paint on? So I like the multimedia paper, the mixed media paper. Actually, Michael's, their Artist Loft brand, it's great. And they have a watercolor paper. In fact, I have it right here. Oops, this is a very big one. This is 18 by 24, and that's a good size, you know, to do a landscape. So this is Artist Loft watercolor level 2. It's not the best paper, but it's good enough, okay? And if you're gessoing it, and if it's a great painting, you're going to either mat it, frame it, or mount it on board. So I don't mind if it sort of buckles a little bit. Let me just show you a few pieces that have of paper that have paintings on them. So anyway, that's a good one. Obviously, you know, the Arches is the best paper. Arches, like, you know, ARCHES. So, and then also Canson makes really good watercolor paper. You always want to get, like, the heavier the pounds, like 140-pound paper is much better than 90-pound. So try to get like 140-pound, or again, you can get what's called mixed media paper. And Canson has one, and Artist Loft, and I like them both. And so those are, you know, good options. Now these papers have multiple layers, my kids, me, but you see it's like there's a lot of paint on there, and it didn't buckle too much. And again, if I was loving this painting, these are just goof off paintings, I would mat it or I'd frame it. This is watercolor, so it doesn't really count. So that's what I would use. And then the other question was, let me just double check the other question because I already forgot. And I'm glad to see that you're going to sign up. I saw that you're going to sign up. Ooh, let's see. Acrylic paper. Oh, sketching beforehand with charcoal, yes. And then what is the best way to add a light shade or wash with oils over an area of a painting? Okay, so let me talk about the charcoal first. Yeah, don't sketch with charcoal because the charcoal adds black to your paint and it makes it muddy and So I have a friend who used to teach landscapes here at my studio, Santa Fe Painting Workshops. She would use just straight up chalk, like white chalk, you know, blue chalk, and it wouldn't really mix in with the paint. And so that's another idea, is just use like white chalk, okay? But I don't sketch beforehand, so that's, you know, kind of my deal. Or pencil, do a very light pencil line. I think that'll be better than using charcoal, okay? Because you're gonna get that black in there, so you wanna be careful. And then how to get a light wash over oil painting in a certain area. So yeah, I did oil paint when I first started painting. And so for oil painting, you're gonna use your turpentine to make it more of a glaze, or not a glaze, but more of a wash, okay? So lots of turpentine, and then you'd probably wanna lay it flat, and then have a little bit of paint in your brush. You don't wanna have a lot so it'll get too drippy, and then you just wanna do a light layer over that area, and that'll create a beautiful glaze. So, and then the other thing you can do to make a glaze, actually, with oil paint, that's not what you're asking me about, but I'll just say, I liked Winsor & Newton made something called Liquid, and it's been a long time, I think they still sell it. It's been a long time since I've done oil painting, but liquid is another great way to create a glaze. So you're basically reducing the translucency, how see-through, right, the paint is. So like this watercolor is very translucent. We can see through to the white, right? Whereas acrylic, if we're layering it really thick, you know, we don't have as much translucency. We don't see the white behind it. Like here we have a glaze or a wash that lets you see the layer under it, but here it's very opaque, okay? All right, so what other questions? And sorry, if you're just signing in, I'm using my better lens, so I can't see my screen, so that's why I keep switching the phone around. So sorry about that. BJ, okay, hold on, there's a few questions here. Oops. What's the best way to add a light or wash with oils over an area? Okay, I already got that one. Do you do a coat of paint before actually painting? Yes, I do. And I'm trying to get two at once. Did you say acrylic or water for acrylics? Strathmore, yeah. Okay, so when it comes to starting the painting, I almost always, only one time I didn't do it, we'll put a layer of color down first. For me, when I'm looking at a white canvas, it's very exciting, but it's also like, if I were to just start painting and I do something really cool and I love it, and then all I have behind it, like you can see areas of just factory white gesso. And again, gesso is just the thick white acrylic paint that's on the canvas. That to me is unfinished. It's gonna look unfinished. So if you want a white background, what I tell my students in my courses, paint a white background on your painting, right on top of the gesso, okay? Get in that habit of always covering. The same thing in landscape. So when landscape painters would paint, they'd always put burnt umber, I think it was, right? Or raw umber, I think it's burnt umber. Always a layer of that on the whole thing, right? That natural brown dirt color. That's what would go first. Then we're building up our layers. And then if you want a blue in the background, and then you're gonna do a glaze on top, the blue comes next, then comes the other color. We always put a color first. I will often demonstrate with students just like how to do a, like blending the colors from dark to light on that first layer. So you can do that just for some fun, or you can just do one solid color. And to me, it's the easiest choice you're gonna make in abstract painting, and it just gets things going. And then you dry that with a dryer, okay, so it stays there. So if you're gonna get a wet rag and wipe things out, we don't go back to the white with the canvas. And then you just keep working on your piece. Okay, and so then there was another question too about, hold on, one at a time. My brain can't handle more than one question at a time. Oh yeah, the paper. Yep, going over the paper. And should we do that before the class this time? No, don't do that before this challenge. The challenge, I'm going to show you what we're going to do in the background. Ooh, I wonder if I actually do one solid color. I actually might not. You'll have to see. But no, just white, just gesso it. That's it. Just gesso. Okay, the paper. Acrylic, you can use watercolor paper, you can use multimedia paper, you can use, they do have, I think it's called acrylic paper or canvas paper, you can use that. As long as it's good quality. Just get good quality, 240 pounds, I think you said, that's good. Yeah, that's great. So because the pounds is like that, the heavier, the less it's gonna buckle. So yeah, and actually if you sign up for the challenge, I actually give you a supply list and I put down what types of paper to buy. So if you end up signing up for this challenge, you'll get that as soon as you sign up. Again, it's $10 and I can explain more about why I charge $10, but I mean the class alone is worth $49. I sell it on its own. But you're gonna get a lot of feedback and Q&As with me next week. You're gonna get a private Facebook group where I give you feedback on your painting and help you understand what's working, what's not working. So yeah, I'll give you that supply list, okay? So you don't have to worry about that right now, but generally speaking, Arches watercolor paper, you can use that, that's really high quality. You can use Canson and Artist Loft, I've used all of those and they work well. So big thing, acid free, okay? This is professional art paper. We're not getting the cheapo stuff from Amazon or something. So I think I'm gonna close this out pretty soon here. If there are any other burning questions about how to start an abstract, how to know, you know, what tools to use or whatever, I'm happy to answer a few more questions and then I'm going to close it out here and hope that you guys sign up for the challenge. Again, if you look in the description box below this, it's the very first thing. There's a link there. Click that. You'll get more information. If the link's not working, let me know. I'll fix it. I put it in right before this class started. So I'd love to have you guys in there. It's really fun and you know, people really end up feeling really happy with what they made. Some people don't love it, but what they made, because the thing is, you know, it's such a moment, right, in time that we're creating these pieces. And sometimes we're just not in the right vibe or like not feeling these colors or whatever it might be. But what I can guarantee you is everyone learns a lot. So whether you end up loving your painting or hating it, you learn a lot. And I can't tell you how many paintings I have sitting around the studio that I hate. That I'm like, oh, you know, I can't wait to paint over that thing. Most of the paintings I make are not paintings that I'm going to put for sale and try to get into a gallery and, you know, put in a frame. The vast majority. It's the minority of things that we create that are the true masterpieces. But we have to learn all those lessons to get there. We have to understand color, composition, different techniques, how abstraction is different. We have to learn that to get to that place. We got to put the time in, you know, I mean, that's just the bottom thing. And, you know, one thing before I sign off and answer a few more questions is if I can encourage you all to study one thing in your art career here, if it's hobby or if it's professional, you've got to study color. You have to understand color. It's number one. It is so important. It's the first thing I believe people see is those colors. They're drawn because of the colors or they're pulled away because of it. And if you make mud or if you just never know what colors look good together, if you study color theory, you're going to understand that. And we do talk about that in this challenge. Specifically, I talk a lot more about it in the final class where I give you the theory behind what we did here, okay? So I'm going to check my phone here. I'm going to twist the camera around again because if you just signed in, the other lens is a lot better. You made my day. I love your personality. Why, thank you. Thanks for the information. I can't wait. Great. Do you ever do collections of similar paintings? And if so, have you ever added to those collections after some time has passed? Yes. So
This is a great example where my camera's showing right now. So let's see. This piece, which I actually just sold, I have to ship it up and ship it out the door soon. This was part of a collection of black, where I reclaimed black for myself, and I only let myself use black, white, silver, brown, gold, silver. Okay, these two are part of that collection. And I revisited it down the road. And like with this piece here, this was sort of the ending of that period, but I revisited it years later saying, okay, I'm gonna use black, but I'm gonna expand a little bit to like, you know, more colors. This series here you're looking at is a natural pigment series that started several years ago, but I've added, in fact, this one's from I wanna say 2023 or 2. This one is 2025. Okay, so I've now added on to this series I call Tumbleweed Love Affair. So you can absolutely revisit your painting series, and yeah, I mean, no problem in doing that actually. Yeah, you can come back to an idea, you can leave an idea for many years. You can do whatever you want because you're an artist and you get to like create your life, especially as an abstract artist, because you know, you get to choose what you do. Now, of course, there's a whole thing about being in a gallery and they want you to make the same kind of works, but anyway, we're not talking about that today. So I'm going to check for a few last questions here, and if there's no more questions, I'm going to sign out. So one more second here. Sorry about the mess here on my table. This was after a class. I went away, and then I just didn't get time to clean it all up. Okay, good. See you there. Good. All right, good. All right, well, that's it. So we're going to close off the questions here. Thanks for popping in. I just decided last minute I wanted to pop in here and talk about this. So thanks for being here. And I hope to see you guys in the challenge. And if not, stay on my channel. And there's a lot of good stuff on there. And I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Bye.